Hello and welcome back. I'm C. This is C's Listening Room. Glad you could join me. Today, I've got a very rare, obscure, mostly regional album here. This is the Jam Rag 2001 Family Album. A friend of mine gave this one to me. Jam Rag was a free publication during the 1990s and early 2000s in the Detroit area. It was actually based out of Ferndale, which is an immediate suburb. And they focused on a lot of local talent. I think they actually had interviews and some features on national and internationally known talent as well. But they were really focused on a lot of local music, and they would have a lot of concert postings, a lot of record reviews. They'd promote a lot of the local talent. And it's one of those magazines that they give out at the record stores, the guitar shops, the drum shops, probably like bars and places that had live concerts or open mics. And it was actually a pretty well-regarded magazine at the time, very underground, very independent. And then early 2000s, they just decided they wanted to go off to other things, and they folded. But they released this, the 2001 Family Album, in 2001, and it's a little sampling of indie, pretty local music. This is one of the hardest albums I've had to review. This one's a little difficult, but I'll get to it. There are basically 14 artists altogether. And some of them get double billing. There's one of them, Pauly Moonbeam, who gets 3 tracks on here, and the rest of them all get 1. And a lot of my complaints about this album really stem from that kind of inconsistency. You got a couple groups that are pretty much standard rock fare, and they get like 2 songs. In the case of Pauly Moonbeam, 3. And then you've got some artists here that are way out in left field. They're very unusual. They're a little harder to pigeonhole, kind of very eclectic. And we only get 1 track from each of them. And I do kind of have a complaint about that, because I think the bands or the artists that only get 1 track are the ones we really need 2 or 3 tracks from. The music is just so different and so distinctive that 1 track really isn't going to give us a gist of what the band is about. For some of the more rock-oriented fare on here, I think that we kind of get an idea from 1 song. Not sure we need 2 Johnny El Camino songs, because when we listen to him, he's got 2 on here. We get an idea of what his song is like. But we got this song from Zelda and the Unibrows, ZATU. I'm assuming they're named after the Legend of Zelda video game series, that franchise, because the music it's video game music. It is like actual video game music. I wasn't expecting it. I'm like, okay, this is really different. But unfortunately, we only get 1 song from them. So it's an interesting track. It was kind of cool, but I have no idea what the rest of their music sounds like. And I have no idea how similar it is to the particular song that appears on this album. And then you had Sandra, the Moonchild Diva. Her song was pretty good on here. Unfortunately, it was like the only song of hers that's on here. Another one that was pretty interesting would have been Mary Thompson, Delta Children, Ignore Your Critics. That was jazz. Okay, that was a jazz song on a pretty much rock album. And so I kind of would have liked to have heard more of their songs, because, again, 1 track from this more jazzy type outfit just doesn't seem like we're really getting a a real idea of what they sound like. But another complaint that I have with this album is that the artists that do appear 2 or in some cases 3 times do not appear together. So you hear one song at the beginning of the album, one maybe in the middle of the album, and then the guy who's got 3 songs, he's also at the very end. So by the time you're at the second song, you don't really remember the first one. So you're like, okay, I know this name, I know we've heard him or her or them earlier on in this album, but I don't remember what their song sounded like. So personally, if I was in charge of compiling this album, I would have had 2 tracks from each artist, and I would have put them both together. Like, basically doubled them up, side by side, so it doesn't confuse people, so people remember what they sounded like. And I would have given each artist probably a little bit more exposure, a little bit more attention than some of these got, so people can hear them at the same time, like one song right after another, but get a better idea of what they sounded like. Third complaint that I had about this album is that it's a little too diverse. Now, that's usually not a complaint, but when you have a compilation album and it is not a movie soundtrack, I think you come across a few problems with that. First is you're not going to appeal to any listener from track 1 to track 13 or 14 or however many are on there. Somebody's going to be flipping through the CD a lot just trying to find the 3 songs they like. When you've got a couple of rock songs, you throw a jazz one on there, you throw video game music on there, you throw a folk song on there, you're going to lose a lot of people. And I think it turns off a lot of listeners. I think people buy it and want to hear a certain genre. They're in a certain mood. And then they listen, and then all of a sudden something that's way, way out of that league comes on, and it just kind of kills the mood, and it just kind of throws them off a little bit. I also think sometimes, probably most of the time, songs sound better with their own kind. I'm not sure it's really going to work when you put like a punk rock song and an electronic video game song or a country song or a folk song or a jazz song or a neoclassical song on the same album. It sometimes works if it's a movie soundtrack. Otherwise, I don't think the songs really sound as good. Those songs were really part of a longer album of usually consistent music. And when you listen to it beginning to end, the song each has a place on that album where it fits in. And when you start compiling an album that's a little bit too different, I think it really almost takes away a lot of the power of these songs. So if they had just stuck with rock bands and then maybe had a second CD that was for jazz and electronic and maybe some folk, I think maybe it would have worked better, because then you know one fan and one person may be a rock fan only and just wants to listen to the rock, and they're in that mood, and they don't want to be thrown off with a jazz song that just comes out at them unexpectedly. So I think maybe a 2-disc set in this case would have been better. And I think that also would have allowed for some of the artists to have even more songs. I think you would have probably had 3 songs per artist if it was a double disc set. One for the rock groups and then one for the not so rock groups. And then like 3 tracks each. I think that would have been even better. It's not a bad album. The music really is pretty cool. I would certainly not trust any of the addresses on the back of the album. I'm not going to write to any of these groups at these addresses trying to find out more about their music, because they've probably all moved since then, since 2001. The music is good. It's hard to review it because it's so different. It just goes all over the place. It's inconsistent as far as the track selections, the amount of times an artist appears, and just the genres. 2.5 out of 5 stars, not because of the quality of the music, but just track selection and the whole packaging. So it's a misleading 2.5 star album. I'm going to give you that. there's really some cool stuff on here. There's some bands that nobody has ever heard of and never will hear of. This is a band that you probably will not find at any store. This album is pretty much just a Detroit only release. And I don't know how many people ended up getting a copy of it. I doubt you'll even find it at a record store around here, the few stores that remain. It's a really cool little look at 2001 era Detroit popular music. I just think a double disc set with a little bit better of a track layout would have been better, because it's really a pretty cool little collector's item. So the 2.5 stars is a very misleading rating because it's not a bad album. I just think it could have been assembled a little bit better so that people could enjoy it more, and so that the music flows a little bit better and kind of has more of a place, instead of sounding just like a hodgepodge of stuff taken from here, and there, thrown together. So it's more of a packaging and selection rating as opposed to quality. So if you can find it, there you go. If you're going to be making an album like this, listen to my criticisms. Maybe take it with a grain of salt, but listen to them, and maybe that would help make a compilation album more enjoyable and really bring out the positives of the song a little bit better. So thanks for watching. I'm still making videos, and hopefully I'll get to do another one pretty soon. So take care. Thanks. Bye.